Welcome to week 2 of our Info 220 tutorials. In this video, I'm simply going to give you an overview of what we're going to cover in this week's tutorials. So in week 2, we're going to be learning a few functions that help us do simulation and lookups. So there's a very confusing formula called VLOOKUP that everybody really hates because it's sort of confusing and has a lot of, takes a little bit of practice to get used to. It's not real intuitive. But in this set of lessons, as you can see, just about half of the tutorials have a VLOOKUP, so you should get plenty of practice during the next hour or so. We're also going to learn a RAND between, which is kind of a fun function. It allows you to do simulation and randomness within Excel. And then we're going to have our if statement, which you should already be familiar with. So in the first video, I'm going to create a spreadsheet that simulates the flipping of a coin. So we're going to use first just a RAND function, and then we're going to show how that's different than what's called a RAND between. And then using an if and a COUNTIF, we'll look at the random number that Excel picks for us and see how many of them are over 0.5, which we're going to translate into heads, and how many are less than 0.5 or greater than or equal to 51. So we're going to simulate the flipping of 100 coins. So very simple simulation that uses the random functions in Excel, and using the if and the COUNTIF, we can tabulate how many times heads or tails comes up. In the second video, we're going to introduce ourselves to the VLOOKUP function. And VLOOKUP allows you to take a range of data that's ordered in related columns. So you might have a employee ID number in the first column, and the employee's name, their department, their salary in columns B, C, and D. And it allows spreadsheets to be able to use that ID number to look up values in another spreadsheet associated with that whatever entry. So we're going to have a couple examples of that where somebody's going to have enter a number. I've got Xavier basketball players and their jersey number entered in one spreadsheet. So you can enter the number, and if that player number was found, then it's going to show their name. Then I have a second example with a product. So you have a product ID, and it'll show the name and other stuff about that product, maybe the price, inventory levels. In video 3, we're going to combine the randomness we did in the first video with the VLOOKUP, and the second video with an example I think that you can kind of have some fun with, a magic 8-ball. So we all know what a magic 8-ball is. It's a little ball that you shake up and ask it a question, and the ball gives you a response like yes or no or try again later. Or so we're going to use the randomness with the VLOOKUP to simulate how a magic 8-ball operates. Video 4 will be something kind of similar, where we're going to create a deck of cards and simulate the game of war. You all know what the game of war is. You take a deck of cards, and one person turns over a card, the other person turns over a card. Whoever's card has the bigger value gets both cards, or a stack of cards. We're going to keep the game relatively simple, but we're going to learn how to use the VLOOKUP, the RAND between, and also a little bit of text editing. I want to show you how to quickly take a chunk of data, copy it and paste it, and do some edit replacing in order to quickly get the deck of cards entered. In part 5, this will be an important part, because our second assignment will be using something similar to this, but we're going to have a simple calculator where the user can enter a starting salary. So if I'm making $50,000 per year now, what will I be making in 10 years if I get a 2% raise every year? So the That requires absolute and relative references. That'll make more sense once I walk you through the example. And then in video 6, we'll do something similar to video 5, but combined with a random table where we're going to have 10 possible raises. So if you maybe 2 years out of 10, there's a 20% chance that you won't get a raise at all. Maybe 2 years out of 10 you get a 1% raise. So this will be a salary forecast with some randomness involved in it. So that'll be the content we're covering for week 6. This will give you everything you need to do the second assignment and the first skills test. So skills test 1 will require part of the content from the week 1 tutorials dealing with pivot tables and conditional formatting, and some of the content for week 2 dealing with ran between, VLOOKUP, if statements, and so on. So anyway, stay tuned for our week 2 video 1 that'll deal with the coin flip.